Okay, I have 6:30. We're going to go ahead and get started with tonight's board meeting. For those that are able, if you wouldn't mind standing for the Pledge of Allegiance. We have all 7 board members present, so I'll call the meeting to order. Dr. Phillips.
Thank you, Ms. Wielden. We'd like to start each board meeting with a reminder of our mission, vision, and core values. And here in BCSC, our vision is to be the choice to learn, work, and play. Our mission is to develop expert learners by partnering with our community to invest in people. And our core beliefs are that we can all rise to the challenge of high expectations, that learning is most effective when we have choice, flexibility, and see relevance, that we thrive when our physical and social and psychological needs are met, that our community and school district are stronger when we partner with one another, that we flourish because of the diversity and variability in our community, and that our democracy and democratic institutions are strengthened by civic-minded citizens. And we're starting off this evening. We have 2 public hearings, both related to the same topic that's been on the agenda a couple of times in the last month or so. This tonight will be the last steps taken on the 2024 lease rental bond from a board perspective, and there are 2 public hearings required. So I'll hand it over to Dr. Bozeman and or Mr. Brinegar to handle those public hearings.
Mr. McIver, can I ask, do I have to gavel out because it's a public hearing? We should? Okay. I'm gaveling out of the meeting and entering the public meeting. Thank you, Dr. Bozeman.
And so these two hearings, I don't think we have to gavel out between the 2, but they are opportunities for public input, both related to the lease rental bonds. One is just to hear any public input on the lease itself. This is related to the $44.1 million bond that would be issued to pay for the first phase of all the projects that were just presented between 5:15 and 6:15 this evening. And also there is an additional appropriation hearing anytime the district is going to spend or may spend dollars above and beyond what was approved by the board last fall during the budget process. We advertise these public hearings and allow for public input before moving on to the next step in the process. And so at this time, if any members of the audience or the board have any questions about the 2024 lease rental bonds or the lease itself or the additional appropriation, we can take your questions or your public input.
Okay.
Appropriate wait time, what was that?
I think that was an appropriate wait time. All right. No questions. Then we will go ahead and gavel back into the regular board meeting. Dr. Stelbaum, if you would, please.
Thank you, President Wielden, Dr. Phillips, and the Board of School Trustees. Tonight, I am honored to celebrate the BCSC Teachers of the Year. First, I would like to celebrate Molly Fountain, 2023 BCSC Teacher of the Year, who completed her interview with the Indiana Department of Education today as a top 10 candidate for Indiana's Teacher of the Year. With over 65,000 teachers in the state, this is quite an accomplishment, and we congratulate Molly on representing Northside Middle School and BCSC well at the state level. This evening, we are here to also celebrate the 2024 BCSC Teacher of the Year, Derek Chastain. As Mr. Chastain makes his way to the front podium area, we will play a video prepared by Josh Burnett.
On Monday, August 5th, 2024, with the help of Dr. Parsons and Columbus East High School, BCSC administration surprised Mr. Derek Chastain by recognizing him as the 2024 BCSC Teacher of the Year, representing the entire district at the state level for the Indiana Teacher of the Year program. After the celebration, and as the new school year began, we stopped by Mr. Chastain's classroom to see our Teacher of the Year in action and ask him what it means to be named BCSC Teacher of the Year. And we also heard from a few students on why he is such a special educator.
Well, I'm really humbled. It's just an honor. I mean, the East has the best teachers in the world. The district has the best teachers. And I'm incredibly touched to receive this honor. And it's very meaningful, especially considering what my colleagues have said to me and also what my students have said about me.
You can obviously tell he loves his job, just how he teaches it and how he just always wants to see it involved with everything. He's always smiling, which you always love. If the teacher's not smiling, they obviously aren't really enjoying where they're at. But he's just always smiling, always happy, and he'll do anything to help you.
I think the way that he just enjoys all of the material that he's teaching, it's so clear that he loves what he does. He's always bouncing in his shoes and just very, very happy to be there, and you can tell. And I really love that in a teacher. It's one of my favorite things about teachers, what they love, is seeing what they love to do, and it just helps me want to learn more.
You know, I couldn't do this work without the people around me, the staff and students. I consider myself a people builder, right? I'm an encourager. I mean, this is part of why I'm here, and I feel really, blessed and honored to be able to share these days with the students here at East High School. This is where we kindle the flame. I mean, this is where it all begins. Like as a teacher, if you get a student interested or excited about that subject, that could go on forever. You don't always know what a difference you're making, and so you have to kind of have to trust it. All right, I'm making a difference. I'm going to stay after it, and then I don't know, kind of like in science and stuff, you get these moments like this one where you get to know what a difference you've made, and it's really touching. And like I said, I've been really the most touched and moved by the things my former students have said. Yeah.
Congratulations to Derek Chastain on being named the 2024 BCSC Teacher of the Year.
Derek Chastain has been described as a lifelong learner, a collaborative peer, an engaging teacher, and a stand-up comedian amongst colleagues. His science classroom is an environment that emulates mutual respect for every student and staff member who enter his classroom door. Whether teaching at Columbus East High School or Indiana University Columbus, Derek's impact on others is profound. Derek's leadership in the science community has seen him share his passion for science, from providing lessons and explorations of planets and stars at the planetarium, to traveling to Germany to present and disseminate his research and scientific findings. Derek's dedication to education is highly visible in the ways he plans for and provides students with optimal access and opportunities to engage in the foundations of science. Whether he is constructing telescopes with students or fact-finding to form hypotheses, Mr. Chastain's classroom culture truly aligns with his mission to be a people builder. As Derek submitted in his Teacher of the Year letter, I am a teacher and people builder. Fulfilling this calling gives me a joyful and unparalleled life experience. I always work to help people grow by giving them the tools they need for success and encouraging them along the way. Throughout Derek's distinguished career, he has received many formal and informal awards and recognitions. Of these include 2015 21st Century Scholars Distinguished Alumni Award, 2017 Eli Lilly Teacher Creativity Fellowship Award, 2018 Indiana Association of School Principals Academic All-Star Most Influential Educator Award, and the award we celebrate tonight, the 2024 Bartholomew Consolidated School Corporation Teacher of the Year Award. It is an honor to present to you Mr. Derek Chastain, 2024 BCSC Teacher of the Year.
Well, I am just very grateful and very delighted to be here this evening to receive this recognition as the BCSC Teacher of the Year. And I'm just honored and humbled to represent the many dedicated and talented teachers in this corporation. So let me try to express all my gratitude here, all right? So thank you to my parents, and thank you to all the teachers and college professors who inspired me. Thanks to the awesome faculty and staff that I've had the privilege to work with in this corporation. I want to thank all the teachers who mentored me and encouraged me when I first started. And thanks to my department and all of my colleagues at Columbus East High School who encourage me today. I feel like I teach alongside the best teachers in the world. They're a constant support of fresh ideas, and they make me a better teacher every day. Thanks to my family and friends, because they always put up with the antics of a crazy science teacher. I want to thank all my students. They bring my classroom to life, and they make teaching and learning such a joy, even if all the assignments don't seem particularly joyful at the time. And I especially want to thank my wife, who, as an educator, can really connect with me and relate to all of the demands and the challenges and the rewards of this profession. So since this recognition, I've been asked way more than usual, why do I do this? Why am I an educator? So a couple of things come to mind. The first one is a single demonstration from my junior high science teacher and how it absolutely captivated me. It was the electrolysis of water, where you pass electricity through water and you separate it into hydrogen and oxygen. And I remember that like it was yesterday. I remember standing at that counter, at that table, watching the whole process, and I thought it was so cool. I wanted to learn everything about it. I think that was the moment that I became hooked on science, and that taught me how a single moment can make a lasting memory. I do this demonstration every year. I also think back to my college days, where I was over halfway through my biology degree, and teaching was not something that was even on my radar. But all that changed when I realized that whatever I learned, with anything I learned, it really only took on meaning when I shared that with others. I am passionate about science, and I do love to share that passion with my students. And I firmly believe it's my calling to teach science as a way to encourage and inspire the next generation, and I am delighted to do this important work. I still can't put into words exactly what this means to be selected as the BCSC Teacher of the Year. This is such an honor. I'm deeply moved by all the notes, cards, and congratulations that have come in, especially those from my former students, as they share their memories of my class and their success in life. All I can say is I love what I do, and I am forever grateful to know that this work makes a difference. So I just thank you all so very, very much.
Thank you, Derek. We'd like to present you a plaque, so don't go anywhere. We have a plaque for you for Teacher of the Year. And then we also have your nameplate on our Teacher of the Year plaque that remains in this room. And then I'd also like to invite up Dr. Tammy Iorio with the Bartholomew Consolidated School Foundation to present to you a recognition.
Thank you for everything you do for our students. So, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Derek. And go ahead and shake hands. Thank you. Let's congratulate Derek one more time for being BCSC 2024 Teacher of the Year.
You can stand in the front.
And Dr. Stahl.
You gotta do like proud of that thing.
That's right. I can see the camera. 2, 1. 3, 2, 1. The camera can see me. Number sign trouble.
Mean.
Congratulations again, Mr. Chastain. Enjoy the rest of your evening. Family of educators leaving right there. You can certainly tell that when somebody uses terms like people builder and only has meaning when you share it with others. That's a true educator right there.
Okay. I think next we have
some representatives here from the South Asia Network to present a check to the School Foundation for an event they held last year. So please come on up, folks. Thank you again.
Thank you for everything that you do with the School Foundation.
Thank you. Thank you.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Sincere thanks to the South Asian Network. They held a gala last spring, and this presentation has been delayed for a couple of months, but their support of the School Foundation will certainly help our kids and our teachers get access to some creative and innovative things for their classrooms. So thank you.
If I may just a minute.
Yes.
I'm in South Asian Foundation that we just formed. As you may all know that South Asians are closely attached to STEM education. So the whole purpose of establishing this foundation was to get ourselves associated with the School Foundation to encourage STEM education. So in fact, as part of that gala night that we had back in spring, we recognized 3 STEM students as well as the school teachers. We went through the process to evaluate, and Josh actually helped us to put together a similar video for ourselves also to recognize the teachers and the students. Thank you very much, Priya. And so as part of this, we are committed to continue to support the School Foundation going forward. Thank you for the opportunity.
Very good. Thank you so much. That's nice. Okay, next we have school board member reports. Pat's shaking his head. I don't think Mr. Bryant has anything tonight, so I'll move to Mr. Major.
Yeah, so I mentioned this earlier. I was at the redevelopment committee meeting tonight, and the housing study that they have worked on for some time now is almost complete. Looks like they've got way more feedback in number of pages than they thought. They're trying to get some of the report condensed and arrive at more of an executive summary. That way they can share it with the public. Probably mid to late September. The Central TIF expansion for inclusion in new Toyota facility was discussed. Arcadia Drive, which is where the new Department of Public Works will be, they talked about around $6 million for improvements there. The Health Trust, we had a meeting last week. It was a pretty good meeting. There's nothing really new to report there. Looks like, I think enrollment's about the same as what it was. Costs are a little bit higher. I think we probably had a lot more kids and adults that had the sniffles in the spring that drove up some costs. So, but everything looks to be pretty positive there. So hopefully this fall we'll talk in a positive manner about premiums. We'll see where that ends up, but we should have another meeting sometime September, October timeframe. So.
Thank you. Mr. Stenner?
Thank you. The District and Facilities Committee met last Friday, and the volunteers from the community that serve on that committee were able to see the presentation that we saw tonight. I'm thinking maybe in one or two places I noticed where comments during that meeting might have shaped what we saw. So we appreciate their help.
I don't have any updates. Mr. Grimes?
Just a couple quick things from the school foundation. August 16th, I guess last Friday, was officially the executive director, Nicole Cunningham, her last day with the foundation. And so I said at the last meeting, and I'll say again, many, many thanks to Nicole and her time spent and time invested as the executive director of the foundation. And I recently learned that the foundation does hope to name a new executive director here in the near future. Two other things, mark your calendars, Sunday, November 10, we'll be here before you know it, the Wizards game at Columbus East, one of the biggest fundraisers of the year, I guess maybe the biggest fundraiser of the year for the foundation. And then lastly, I don't want to steal his thunder, but I just learned from Mr. Nowlin that Dale will be back on the trail, I think Wednesday. We'll be headed back out east to Maine to tackle more of the AT and continue to raise money for kids in BCSC in need of eyeglasses and high school kids that are taking dual enrollment courses. And so again, everything up to date and a place to donate can be learned at bcsfstars.org.
No reports here. No reports, and Mr. Grimes can steal my thunder anytime.
Good. Okay, cabinet reports. Dr. Hack?
Thank you. As our team comes together, I have been waiting to present this report for a long time. Starting in March of last year, I'm like, can I talk about it now? Not yet. Can I talk about it now? Not yet. How about now? Oh, let's wait till they're actually, ready for us to talk about it. So the state produced our scores this last week, and we are ready to talk about iRead scores and the scores of our youngest readers in BCSC. I have two people up here with me tonight that will help. I'll let them introduce themselves whenever the time comes, but this is an exciting time for us, and we just thank you for letting this happen tonight. I'd like to start by giving you a brief history of iRead 3. As you probably know, our assessment, somebody has the clicker, I can tell. Chad, not yet. Dr. Phillips, not yet. Don't spoil it for me. So as you know, the assessment is around 3 parts. It's foundational reading, it's literature, and it's nonfiction. So those three parts come together for our students to take a test. It's about 2 hours over the course of 2 days. It's not timed, and so our students, we feel like it's a fair assessment. It's a fair assessment of where they are, it's a fair assessment of the timing, and it's also a fair assessment because we get those results back so quickly, we can adjust our instruction to meet the needs. So that's why we feel iRead 3, or iRead as we call it now, is a fair assessment. I've got the clicker. There we go. So you have this slide in front of you, but I want to go ahead and point out a few things. 723 students passed iRead 3, or iRead, in BCSC this past year. This is phenomenal. We are so proud of the students, and we're so proud of the teachers who are intentional with their instruction to make this happen. So 723 was our number. We do have students that did not pass iRead 3, and that number is 128. That 128, within that number, there are 53 with an IEP, 28 are considered EL students or have language as a second, under 2 years as their language inside the school. And then that brings us to 47. We have 47 who do not qualify for what we consider to be a good cause exemption based on Senate Bill 1. So you've heard a lot about Senate Bill 1, and now that starts coming into play. So we would have 47 students, unfortunately, that would be up for retention at the end of their summer school experience. Our students get 3 opportunities to pass iRead, starting in 2nd grade. They move then to 3rd grade, they get 2 chances there. One of those happens to be in summer school, and if at the end of summer school they have not passed, they would be considered a cause for retention, unless they have a parent or a family member who steps up and asks for a waiver for that reason. Okay. I've got it. All right, so this is an exciting slide for us because this does talk about our comparison with the state average. Looking at this slide, you will note that we exceeded the state average by 2.5 percentage points. We have a goal of 95% of our students passing by the year 2027. This is a goal that's set by the state, but it's also one that Dr. Phillips has encouraged us to continue to grow towards, and that is our goal. We will be intentional with our work, getting to that 95% passing rate. We are so proud of the efforts. Again, you can see the growth this year, and we'll continue putting all efforts to making that goal a reality. This one talks about the demographics. As you can see, we outperformed the state in our EL population. We outperformed the state in our socioeconomic status with that group. And then the group that we did not get any information on would be our special ed numbers, but I feel confident that we will outperform that as well based on our data that we've been collecting in-house. So again, you see that another exciting slide for us. These are the categories that the state does report out on, so that's why we report on them as well. As you look at this slide, we had a 6.5 percentage point increase from 2023, and we narrowed the achievement gap between our EL learners and our non-EL learners. This is a great time to give credit to the great work being done in our buildings to build confidence and knowledge in these readers. Let me, though, give you an example of both the challenges and the honor that we have in serving our students. We had a family move to Columbus from Guatemala early March. The 3rd grader had an amazing smile, a curious mind, and very little comprehension of words spoken in English. This little one was still mandated to give the iRead test. She scored at a beginning pre-primer level, understandably. Our teachers worked with this child, and while she didn't pass on her attempt in summer school, her spirits were high and her knowledge of English words were on a trajectory upwards, beginning her journey to read. She loves school, loves her principal, and knows that she is here to learn and grow. This is just one story behind the numbers, and there are so many more that happen in our schools every day. This data presents the socioeconomic status. We again outperformed the state with this, and we look at that jump. an increase of 10.3 percentage points, lessening the achievement gap between these two groups. And before I turn things over to Dr. Detmer, I just wanted to point out that we were one of the pilot groups this past year that gave the second grade test, the IRE test, to all of our second grade students. There is a mistake, sorry, it's 23-24 on this slide. But we gave that test to all of our second grade students. You can see that we had 812 that we tested. I'll let Jenny explain the results, but I wanted to let you know that moving forward with Senate Bill 1, all students will be tested in second grade in the state of Indiana. It's the same test, the same presented in the same way with the same cut scores. It's just, again, given to them late in their second grade year so that we can get a baseline.
Good evening. My name is Jennifer Detmer, and I'm the principal at Taylorsville Elementary. So this slide shares with you, as Dr. Hack said, we had 812 second graders in our district that took iRead last school year. Of the 812 second graders, 363 of these students passed. So that was above the state average, as you can see on this slide. What does this mean for us? Well, of those 363 students that passed do not have to take the iRead assessment as third graders. So that's one less assessment for them to take during this school year. It also means that we have 131 students, according to the state, that are considered on track without additional reading interventions worked with them this year. Again, that's right at the state average. And then we have 318 students that are considered at risk, meaning they need additional interventions to help pass this school year. We know as part of BCSC, we will dig into the data to ensure those 318 students this year continue to grow, as well as the 131 to ensure that they pass. When we look at this data, what does it do for us? Why did we do the pilot? Well, going into this school year, we were able to work on classroom placements a little bit more intentionally, as well as working on starting those interventions a little bit sooner with students instead of having to get to know them and collect data at the beginning of the year. We started the year with data. Each report that we get from iRead tells us how a student will performed on foundational skills, literature, and nonfiction. So that when we are beginning to break students into their intervention and enrichment groups from the beginning of the year, this helps. We don't want to forget that we had 363 students that passed. So we also want to continue their growth as we go into this school year. This slide allows us to break the numbers down a little bit more based on the data points we have from all of our second graders this past school year taking the iRead assessment. You'll see on the one side, 363 students passed and 131 students are considered on track. In the maroon and gray section, we are able to break down that 318 students a little bit more. Of those 318 students, 68 students currently qualify for a good cause exemption if their case conference team decides it's needed and if they do not pass. Some of those students very well will pass. And then of that, 27 students would qualify for a good cause exemption because they have been in the United States for less than 2 years and also receive services through English learners. And we do not currently have any students that have been retained twice, or that number would be different, which then brings us to the gray area on the chart. Statistically, we have observed that if students score a minimum of 365 as a second grader, they're more likely to pass iRead as a third grader. And we have 90 students at this time that fall in the range of scoring between 365 and 445, which makes 446 a passing score. So we have 90 students that fall in that range. We have lots of data, which is a great thing. I love to pour into data, look at the numbers, and it tells us a lot of great things happening in our district. But we do have to remember, as the story Dr. Hack shared, they are students, and we don't have numbers sitting in our chairs. So our staff members are doing a great job of meeting the needs of these students. The data gives us another view or perspective when we're thinking about creating those intervention groups. And we also had the challenge last year of measuring the growth of all students. As we've talked about some qualified for a good cause exemption, but it's really important for us that we are working on literacy for all students. So we then tested students to see the growth and to measure the growth that they had on that third chance at iRead. All of our students have the ability to learn and grow at high levels. So now I will hand it over to Jeannie Long.
Hi, my name is Jeannie Long and I work in the elementary curriculum office. And today I want to talk to you a little bit about some of the strategies that we used in our classrooms over the last year and this year moving forward. So as Dr. Detmer spoke earlier, that we received a whole lot of information based on how those students in second grade scored on iRead. And we were able to use that to, she said, place students in classrooms. We were able to use that now this year in August to work with students to intentionally work on some interventions because we know exactly where they need that work. So with iRead, we're able to compare apples to apples. We know that we are preparing them for that assessment that's coming, but moreover, we are working to get them to be fluent readers, which is the most important thing. We all want them to pass, but being a fluent reader will help them in life with math and science and social studies and STEM, and then moreover to those graduation rates. So that data becomes very, very important to us in that third grade and how we use that. We are also a thing that the state is really focusing on, and you'll hear a whole lot of information on, is progress monitoring. What does progress monitoring look like in our elementary schools? So we're very fortunate that we have a tool this year that we tried with all of our third grade students last year and saw huge success, as you saw from the results. So we now have that tool now for K to fifth grade to do some intentional progress monitoring. So that progress monitoring is a very small test that they will take, and the teachers in the schools, the grade levels, they will decide when they are going to give that and the frequency of when they need to give that based on the students that they have in front of them. So we talked about, so if you have a student that is really lacking on your data that you have on phonemic awareness, phonological awareness, there is a progress monitoring tool. About 10 minutes is what it takes. It gives us concrete information, real-time information on where they are on phonological awareness. It also can test them on phonics, where they are in phonics. And that phonics is really what they call the secret sauce for getting students to be able to decode and read. And then the most important thing that we want all third graders to get to as quickly as possible is that oral reading. They read a passage and answer some questions. They're practicing oral reading. They're practicing answering some questions because comprehension is our goal. Our main goal is that you are able to read and understand what you are reading. So we are very fortunate to have that progress monitoring tool so we know exactly where they are throughout the year. So we don't have to wait till March when we do iRead again. So we have information on those students throughout the year, and it's relevant and very current to what we need. So you've heard a lot about Senate Bill 1. Senate Bill 1 has, I didn't know I would ever be so immersed in a Senate bill in my life, but we are really diving into Senate Bill 1. And one of the things that it says in Senate Bill 1 is that if a student does not pass iRead by that March window in third grade, then they will be retained if they do not show some gains. So one of the ways that they said is that you can take it a third time, and that's during summer school. So we decided, we knew that was coming this coming summer. So we were proactive. We had summer school this year and invited our third grade students that did not pass. Our students, our teachers and administrators worked incredibly hard during that week, a little over a week. So summer school happened after our last teacher day. So after the teacher day, they came in here, all of the teachers that were going to be teaching summer school, I talked to them about science of reading, some resources that we have in our curriculum that they could be using, and then the next day they received students for summer school. One of the things is we noticed is we had a lot of our students pass after that summer school time. Now, it wasn't just 1 week and they magically were able to read. So when we got that information in March, teachers were very, very intentional with those students the last 9 weeks, and then that week, a little over a week of summer school. And we saw great gains from that. And the students actually, they had a great time and just loved it. So we feel like we have a really good idea of what that could look like this summer. So I think that was a great plan that we had to start that this last summer. Throughout the summer, or throughout the year, we are going to continue PD on the science of reading. So I'm sure you've heard a lot about the science of reading. So through our district PD days, we will be working with the elementary teachers, no matter what you are teaching on science of reading, because we are all reading teachers. In every subject that you have, you're going to have to be reading at some point, even math. Mr. Nowlin, there's lots of reading. So we want to make sure that our elementary teachers, and actually all teachers, know we are all reading teachers. So we're going to be doing some development of our teachers during those PD days, and we're very thankful that we have those. Our CCIC will be meeting very soon to discuss these results as well. And the last thing that I want to talk about before we turn it over to questions, we are very, very excited that this year we are participating in the IDOE Literacy Cadre. This is cohort 3. We have 4 schools that are participating in this: CSA Fadria, Mount Healthy, Parkside, and Richards. And with this, we are able to gain invaluable knowledge from these people that are going to all these meetings, that are working with these schools. This is 2 years that they are working with this, receiving training. And so we are really focusing in on how we can learn from them to share with all of our buildings. So we're just very grateful for the opportunity to participate in the literacy cadre through the state. So now we are happy to answer any questions that you might have on iRead or our literacy report.
I've got a quick question. First of all, thanks to all of you. And this is probably most appropriate, Dr. Hack, for you.
Sure.
And I promise I'm not trying to put you on the spot or get you in hot water with this question. And I ask it because as a teacher myself, I've seen many tests over the years that I would argue did a very poor job of measuring what they said they would measure. So what would be your honest assessment of the assessment?
Sure. We've had the opportunity to give the assessment and watch students with the assessment. It is truly foundational skills. It's talking about phonics. It's talking about foundational pieces. It's talking about certain vocabulary. It's the who, what, when, where, and why of reading whenever they ask a question. Sometimes our questions and our assessments get so complex that the students get lost in the question. For example, what was the theme of this story? That becomes much more difficult. What did the author mean when they said this? Again, much more difficult to answer. The questions coming from iRead are truly point questions in the text. It's very little inferencing. It's more knowledge based on what did you read. And that has been a game changer for our iRead students. iLearn is a different story. That's why we cannot compare the two. But we do feel when we've seen this test given, students feel comfortable taking it. They understand it. Teachers feel comfortable giving it because they do feel like it's the items from the state standards that they've practiced and worked on.
Yeah, thank you. And I knew there was a significant difference between the two. And my question was related to iRead.
Sure.
So thank you.
I have several questions. First, a couple about the second graders that took the test. So I asked Dr. Hack earlier, and she informed me that it's the same test. They're actually taking the third grade test.
That is correct.
Same test the third graders take it. So one thing is that we had 43% of our second graders pass the test that was written for third graders. And I think 43% doesn't sound like very many, but that's pretty, or 45%. Sorry.
45.
That's amazing. Right
We are very proud of that.
So my question is, so the state says 131 are on track based on their score as second graders. And then I'm a little gray about the gray area. So 90 students are kind of on track. What's the difference between those 90 students and the 131 students? That's my question.
Sure. So out of the 318 that are considered at risk, we've done a statistical analysis based on 2 years of our data. So that's where, again, we're still in the primary stages of understanding our data over a longitudinal time. But if you score at a 365 or above, we feel, even though you're at risk, we feel like we're going to get you over the hump. We really do. And so that's the tipping point of a number that we're like, let's do it. We know we can capture those 90 kids and make some great things happen for all kids, but those 90 we should be able to get over the hump by our statistical analysis.
So that means with the interventions.
Absolutely, with the interventions. Right. So the way that we look at that is we have the on-track kiddos would need very little intervention. So the passes are passed. They'll never take the IRE test again. The on track, they do need some interventions, but they're less interventions than what would be needed for the at-risk. The at-risk, we need to do a 90-minute reading block plus give additional support. And that additional support can come from book buddies, which we encourage all of you to think about, family support, small group instruction, individualized instruction. So we have a multitude of ways to reach our at-risk students.
And then on the summer school, first of all, it's commendable that teachers were working on that before summer school, which sounds like that was a huge part of that.
It was.
But do we know what of those that participated, what percent passed, or do we know numbers from summer school?
We do. 77% or 77 students came to summer school consistently, and 44 students passed.
Okay. And finally, book buddies, which I am volunteering in book buddies,
Thank
and
you.
it's fun even for a math teacher, and they make it so easy to do.
We're watching your student and how they're doing, by the way.
What's that?
I'm just joking. Just joking. Dale student, right there.
They well, and every once in a while they'll ask me about they'll bring up math, not me. But anyway,
I question that.
So my question is, in terms of these numbers, how many? I know it hasn't started yet for this school year. At least at Schmidt it hasn't. But how many book buddies? I know we always need more, but how many do we have? Volunteers.
So we're at 100 plus right now. We could always take more volunteers because the more volunteers we get, the more students we can bring in. It's all based on the number of volunteers first. So because of that, the last I checked, we were at about a 120 volunteer area. So knowing that, that's how many students we can serve. But any more volunteers, we serve more students.
Okay, thank you.
And out of our students from last year, 98% of book buddies passed IREAD.
For the 318, how was the communication plan, I guess, to the parents, and like what support services have you provided, or at least try to bring them in on to get ready for the third grade?
Right. So we've already sent home a letter this year saying your child is at risk to not pass IREAD. We know, though, that there are interventions along the way. We're not trying to do a scare tactic to parents, but we want them to be aware, and that letter was sent out last week, just letting them know that your child is at risk. We're still going to do the work that happens inside of school, but we need your help outside of school, too. So we gave them suggestions on ways that they could help their child at home, as well as what other things that they can do in the community to booster and really help their confidence of their child reading. Read at night. That's the very first thing we ask all of our families to do. Continue to read at night.
Thank you.
And then another letter will go home after the second semester, beginning of second semester, just as a reminder, because at 318, not all those students are still with us, and then we've gained some other students too.
So since COVID, our trend has been the wrong direction. And so I think seeing these numbers, this is awesome. This is great work that everybody's put together. I think everybody appreciates all the effort from teachers, parents, students. So thank you all. One question I have, first, you've done a great job with the presentation because you've answered all but one of my questions.
Okay.
So thank you. And I think you've done a good job with other people's questions too. But with the monitoring, the progress monitoring, would it be possible to maybe get like a mid-semester, semester end report, just a very high level,
Absolutely.
to show that throughout the school year, you're getting what you need out of the students and the parents to deliver on their half. The teachers have what they need in book buddies and others to help support on their side, so that we know before we get to the end of the year that we're going to be good or bad. And where we need help, we can advocate for more help.
Thank you for saying that. And on this slide, I neglected to point out 2020 is not up there because of COVID. So you were exactly right. The state, we're seeing the results now down from where we were with COVID, but now we're both trajectorying up, which is trajectorying up. So that's exciting for all of us to see. And we do have a universal tool that we're giving to all of our third grade students so we can get that information real time. We're also going line by line with kids. So we know kid by kid who needs what support and how we can best support them from our office, and then help the principals who help the teachers. So we can do that for sure.
Would it benefit everyone to see if that tool for third graders would be easy to use for maybe pick one or two schools to try in second grade, just to familiarize them with the tool?
Actually, we had a meeting about that today, so I'll let Jeannie talk about that.
So last year, we really were focused on our third grade students, but we were able to purchase the seats for all of our K to 5 students. So we are working really hard with going into the schools and really identifying those second graders and talking about, so you have information from NWEA that they take 3 times a year. So we get scores on that. They also do the universal screener for dyslexia. So we get really quick information on our second graders if they're flagged for some reading challenges. We also take adaptive oral reading. So we get information really soon, really fast, and so we are working with our first grade. We talk to kindergarten, they're trying to understand life the first semester. Are there students that in the second semester we can do some progress monitoring on? But even in first grade, so we're talking to all of our buildings. First grade, do we have some students that we can get some concrete data on? Second grade, for sure. We want to be proactive. We want to be able to address situations as soon as we can, or see where they're shining and soaring and keep them soaring. Because there's a tool where we can with that oral reading. If they are soaring, we can up the grade level so that they're working to go even higher. But we have also for those students that need a little extra boost. So yes, I am working, or our office is working with all of the instructional coaches in the building. Myself and another one of my colleagues, we're going into the buildings that do not have instructional coaches to work with, especially those second and third grade, so we can be more proactive and that we are all using this tool. We like this tool in that it's quick. It's 10 minutes. They're getting a really good practice, but it's universal. All of our students will be taking the same one. So we're able to talk about the data because we're all using the same thing. That was very, very important to us, that we were all using the same progress monitoring tool. So yes, that was a very long answer, but yes, we are working with actually first grade and second grade, third grade, but we're also, our fourth, fifth grade, sixth grade, what are we doing for them? We don't want to just lose sight of anyone just because they're out of that iRead year. We really are concerned, how can we even progress monitor that oral reading in fourth grade and in fifth grade, which we have this tool, and then what do we need to do for sixth grade, just so that we can keep pushing and so the reading scores go up and we have better reading across all grade levels.
Thank you.
Thank you. One of the presenters, one of the speakers, and I think it's even in the last slide, talked a little bit about the science of reading. And I'm wondering if you could give me, say somebody asked me in the grocery store what the science of reading, what's new and different about that, what the change is, the benefit.
Right. So fortunately, we have a science of reading expert who's standing right here with us. So I will turn things over to her, but it is definitely a question that's out there. It's grounded on theory and it's grounded on research. So we're very fortunate to have Jeannie at the helm whenever we talk about the science of reading. And remember, every teacher in BCSC, third grade through kindergarten, will have access to her materials.
So I'm so glad you asked. So I'm going to condense. But so really when we think about science of reading, the state and the Dyslexia Association has a really big definition. So we worked in our curriculum team last year to kind of condense that so that we could talk about what that is. So really the main things that you need to think about with the science of reading is that it is 50 years worth of research from many different areas. So it's not new, it's not a fad, it's also not a program. But when we think about science of reading, we're really thinking about that what we're teaching is systematic. So when our students, they are learning skills from easiest to hardest, and it progresses from kindergarten all the way through really second grade is where those foundational learning the most takes place. So that's the first thing, that is systematic. The other thing is that it's explicit, that it's explicitly taught. We work to make sure that that phonics, that code-based reading is explicitly taught to the students. They learn those phonics rules, those syllable divisions, so that kind of explicit teaching. So the teacher's teaching, they're practicing, they're doing lots of new skills and practice. The other thing is the big five of reading. So the big five of reading is that we are instructing systematically and explicitly on phonological awareness. Phonological awareness is how we manipulate sounds, how students can tell the difference between cat and bat. What's the different sound? The beginning sound is different. We also work on phonics. We've talked about phonics, and that's that code, that those phonics codes that we teach them, those rules. The other thing is fluency. Fluency is one of the most important things that bridges all the work they do in primary with the phonics and the phonological awareness to then reading comprehension, because that's how they read. Are they able to read at an appropriate pace? Do they have some accuracy? And do they read with expression and not monotone? So that fluency is that bridge between the two. The fourth one is vocabulary. That students have a range of vocabulary, that depth, that breadth of vocabulary, and knowing when to use a word. Is it big? Is it gigantic, or is it enormous? To know those shades of meanings of words, the morphology of words. And then the last one, and the reason why we do all of this, is comprehension. That's the end goal, is that students are able to comprehend what they are ask. It's really that big body of research on how students learn to read and write. And that's with systematic instruction, it's explicit, and that it's explicit on those big five reading components.
Thank you.
I'd encourage you to tell him to call Jeannie in the student line. As you can see, you couldn't find three more passionate people about reading. We love what we do. We love working with reading in our youngest of students and our older students too. But we're not letting up on the gas. We know we have work to do. We have 85% passing this year. We want to strive, and we will strive to meet that 95 for the state and for BCSC.
It is nice to see the wind in your all sails. The energy is infectious, and I appreciate all of the information.
We could talk a lot more.
I was going to ask, I'm really interested, you still need to get about 3.5% better every year, the next 3 years to get there. So a long list of great strategies, and I'd really like to see some of the outputs of the September CCIC. I know you'll be doing a lot of brainstorming work and coming up with new strategies or places where we can double down on what we have. So I think we'd all like to see how that turns out.
We'll be excited to share that as well.
Good, thank you.
Real quick, one last question from me. Do you know when the I hate to do this, but when the math testing information comes out?
For iLearn?
Yeah.
iLearn is already out.
It is out, okay.
Yes.
Awesome, thank you.
All right. Remind me, if I see Jeannie in the store, I'm going to go the other direction. It's just because it's on the weekend. I love to talk about learning how to read, but just on the weekend. Thank you for that, all three of you. That was terrific, terrific information and a reminder of why we're here. The goal is not to pass the test, but to be a fluent reader, and so to make sure as many of our kids are ready to read fluently by third grade, or by the end of third grade. Ms. Wielden, the next item on the agenda is the first reading of the reorganized policies. Just a reminder for anyone that hasn't heard the story before, we have engaged with an Indiana-based law firm to take over for Neola in the management of our board policies. And they sent us a package of policies to review 4 weeks ago, 3.5 weeks ago. We reviewed those internally. Those went on to the website 2 weeks ago, 14 days before tonight. And then tonight, so 14 days is what our current policy mandates those be posted publicly before the first reading. So tonight's first reading is on 14 policies. I'm not going to read them to you, although I promise I am fluent. 14 policies will replace or consolidate all or part of 26 current Neola policies. So again, the goal of this is to simplify the policies so that they're easily digestible by the public, accessible by the public, and easier for the board and for the district to manage than they were under our previous agreement. I already told you about that timeline. The second reading for these is scheduled for September 9th. There was one caveat to that. And that bottom down, the bottom section down is just a reminder of the way that Churchill and Antrim, which is a law firm putting this together for us, that is the way that they have organized the policies for the 20 or so districts they've done this for over the past decade or so. So the 14 policies up for the first reading tonight include firearms, weapons, and destructive devices, reporting of child abuse or neglect, the tobacco use policy, responsible use of technology, wireless communication devices, which is one that's mandated that we update this summer by new Indiana code, civility and decorum, functions of the board, which I'll go into in just a second here. Attendance is the next one that is mandated by the most recent legislative session. There was only one clause in there that was required to be updated, and it was not a change for us. Homework, district organization, standard of care and supervision of students, staff ethics. The teacher appreciation grant is one that must be approved during the September 9th meeting. So regardless of what happens tonight, we have to have that one approved and uploaded in order to pay out those teacher appreciation grants when they come this fall. And then last is data breach and protection. On the right side of the slides, we have the Neola policies that all of those will replace. Again, 14 policies replacing about 26 current Neola policies. The only one that I want to point out to you that is a little bit of a variance from in the past. The rest of these have no substantive changes over our current policies. But under functions, you might remember that I sent you a note not too long ago that our current policy says that we will post the policies. They'll be up for 14 days. We'll do a first reading. Then there is a mandated, by our policy that was just passed last year by this board, a mandated public work session to review those changes before the second reading occurs. In proposed policy B175 functions, the 14-day posting remains, but the only thing that we have changed in that proposal to you this evening is that there is not a mandated public work session since there aren't substantive changes to the policies. But if the board votes to pull out one or more of these to conduct a public work session and further discussion on, that one would be pulled out, and we could either hold that work session before the second reading or just delay the second reading for that 1, 2, or more policies that the board chooses to pull out. If the board moves forward and says we don't need a public work session on these, then on September 9th, all of these will be in their second reading and up for approval. Happy to take any questions on either the process or any of the content of these proposed reorganized policies.
So I think this is clear. I'm going to play back what you just said to us on B175. And if we were executing the change you just described in this session, if somebody on the board said, I really want to talk about no tobacco policy, and we would actually make a motion. Would we make a motion and vote? Because the way the functions policy is now written as it requires majority of the board. So a board member would make a motion, we would get a second, and we would vote. And if majority wants to hold a work session, that's what we would do.
Correct. That's what the proposed B17 policy is essentially, just for the sake of transparency tonight, based on our current policy that has not yet been replaced by B175, we would need to have a public work session between now and the second reading, proposing that the board basically waive that as a procedural requirement if all of the board members agree that there's no need for that with these reorganized policies. Of course, we could schedule one prior to the next meeting or between now and then if that's the board's desire. But if we move forward and approve B175, then in the future, there would just be a time right now when a board member would say, I propose that we pull out the no tobacco policy and have a public work session before the second reading. Board could vote on that, and we would do so if a majority of the board voted to do so.
And for the
Clear as mud?
Yep. I heart policies. Okay, I heart policies. And for the just to remind us all, Mike, most of our policies require majority. Are there any exceptions to that? Vote to implement a policy. Are there any exceptions to that?
I would have to go back and look at the bylaws provision. There are some policies within the policy manual that are designated as bylaws. Mm-hmm. Those may require a slightly different approval procedure if I'm remembering correctly. Yep. But generally speaking, most of them are by a majority.
Yep. Thank you. What questions do the team have?
So, Ms. Wielden, at this time, if there are any, if there are no other questions or discussion, I would ask if any board members would like to make a motion to pull any of these policies out to have a public work session on between now and the September 9th meeting, when they would be up for a second reading and approval.
It was an appropriate wait time. Again,
that was
I
good
think,
wait time.
if I'm keeping track. Okay.
These will remain on the website for anyone in the public who wants to see them on board docs under policies and then proposed policies. This is package 1. And it'll be, the next one, it'll be about 3 more weeks before the next package is posted under a different tab, ready to review under package 2.
Okay.
Thank you.
One clarification, not that I'm considering doing this, but that motion from a board member to wait on a policy like for this group could still be done next time and then do a public work session, pull that one out and do a public work session for the next meeting.
That's a great point, Mr. Nallen, that it would not have been approved at that point, at the September 9th meeting, for example, with this package. So if any of you were to get feedback from the public that they really want to dig more into this, or you discover that you have any concerns, then at the next meeting, we could take that step. Good point, thank you.
So is the second package expected to be the late September meeting then? Is that the plan?
September 23rd meeting would be the first reading. They would be posted by September 9th. Thank you very much. Next item under Cabinet Reports is the Quarter 2 Financial Report. Mr. Brinegar for the first time.
Good evening, everyone. Pleased to be here in front of you for my first time discussing the Quarter 2 Financial Report. Good news I get to bring to you, our revenues across the board are about 9.4% higher than they were for the first half of last year. Your education fund is about 8.4% higher. Operations fund, 14.4% higher, and the operating referendum fund, 2.3% higher. are on pace to reach their budgeted levels by year end. Looking at education fund expenditures, salaries and benefits are up 9% over last year. This is as a result of the pay increase for all employee groups that occurred following the collective bargaining agreement last fall, the addition of the high school administrators for cohorts, and continued success in filling positions. Operations fund expenditures, salaries and benefits are up approximately 4% over 2023, and your other expenditures are tracking as budgeted for the year. The operating referendum fund expenditures are all tracking as expected. If you want to look down at the safety and security, it looks like we're a little low for the year, but we have ordered buses that have not come in yet. When those buses come in, we will have those expenditures, so we are on track for the year within that area. Dialing down a little closer into the referendum area, the salaries through Q2, operating referendum contributed approximately $3.3 million in increased salaries for employees. That's 540 teachers and nearly 1,100 staff members that benefited from the increased salaries as a result of the referendum. And then finally, your Q2 fund cash balances. Pretty much across the board, we're ahead of where we were for last year. Your education fund, operations fund, the referendum fund, and the health dental trust are all ahead of where they were last year. Those first three, the education fund, operations fund, and the referendum fund, are all ahead due to stronger than anticipated revenues for the first half of the year. Higher salary and benefit costs in the second half of the year will bring some of those balances down. The debt service fund is a little bit lower than last year, but that was planned and will continue to draw down slightly over the next year. And be glad to answer any questions you may have. I went kind of fast, I apologize.
So for the operations fund, it's clearly growing at a faster clip than the other ones, just based on year over year. Is there a strategy to allow the education fund to retain some of that growth by lowering the transfer, or? Because I was just trying to figure out how to balance, or if there's plans for those operation fund excesses. Because I know the goal, if I recall our conversations in the past, try to keep 2 pay periods in education fund, 2 pay periods in operations fund, but that growth seems like it would exceed that.
That is exactly what we intend to bring you 2 weeks from now during the budget workshop.
Pass.
And you can't ask Dr. Phillips. He's not the finance guy anymore. There we go. Point of order.
Sorry.
You noticed I didn't speak up at all.
I understand. We had the prior conversation.
Yes. Out of curiosity, what is driving the additional revenue?
Well, I'll take first half. If I miss it, you'll back me up, right? Part of that is with the 4% cap on the levy increase, we have seen with higher assessed values on property, we are receiving more money because the values are higher, so our tax revenues that way are higher. I'm not sure if there are any other excessive revenue areas there.
That's one, particularly only with operations for that one, and that's essentially because even those at the tax caps already on property taxes, if your assessed value goes up with a maximum of 1%, then those revenues increase. So we're just losing less to tax cap losses. The second one is that you all have said it for years, we underestimate revenues and overestimate expenditures. And then the third one that is not anything that we can really predict is returns from investments. The interest rates staying as high as they are for as long as they have generated at middle of the year about $1.5 million into each, the education fund and the operations fund. And so a significant amount of coming from that, but 3 months from now that could be gone. So we actually have a proposal we'll bring here in 2 weeks on the budget to appropriate some one-time spend that would use up some of those dollars for some priority items, including safety and security.
It's really handy having him one floor above me.
Any other questions? Thank you very much. You did a great job.
Thank you.
Okay, we have public comments tonight. So just remind everybody of our process. If you would like to speak at the board meeting, there's always a blue sheet at the table when you walk into the room, and you can put your name, address, and then usually if you put what you want to speak about, that's helpful. That sheet makes it around to me, and it's always part of the agenda. You get 3 minutes to speak, and that timer will help you stay on track. We ask that you not use any individual names of people. Specific titles are kind of the same thing, so we just want to make sure we keep this professional. And if you have a long list of people and there has a point that you'd like to make and it's already been made, it's okay for you to pass. When I call your name, you can just say your point's been made, and I will move on. I ask for no cheers or jeers from the audience. I think speaking can sometimes be overwhelming in an environment like this, so we just want to make sure everybody feels comfortable doing that. Okay, so first on the list is Michelle Carr.
Hi, everyone. I first wanted to start off and let you know, thank you all for all the work you're doing on successfully helping our young people learn how to read. I can tell you, and it may come as a shock to those who know me, I didn't jump right at the start when I was taught to read. It did take a little bit of help, some extra time with me before I could pick it up. Now I'm an avid reader. Some may say I'm an addict. But it's definitely a passion of mine. I try to read everything I can get my hands on. And a lot of times I feel like I grow from what I'm reading, especially if it's from a different perspective that I myself have never experienced. And I can say I experienced that when I read the book Push earlier this year. I chose to read it myself just on a whim. I knew that there had been a movie on it. I hadn't seen the movie yet, but I heard good things, and I was like, I want to read this book and see what it's all about. I've learned now that it's been challenged, and it makes me kind of sad. I remember being uncomfortable when I read the book. I remember crying when I read the book. But I also know that sometimes being uncomfortable means you're growing. And it's something that you grow from. I mean, if I walked away from everything that made me uncomfortable, I wouldn't be up here speaking. So, things I drew from the book was that a young person might be able to recognize abuse that they might not have been able to see before. And also as an adult, it's a reminder for me, and I think others, of situations that you may look at it from the outside and think you've got it understood, but it's not what you really think it is. And underneath there was so much more, and a lot of people judged the main character for what they saw on the outside and didn't know what she was personally going through. And I think it was a good reminder that, we need to stop before we just make assumptions and maybe learn about the situation that the person's in. And I thought it was a very good reminder, a great growth thing. And as an option and not a syllabus book, I think as a mother of an East student, that is perfectly acceptable. I would be fine if my child read it. I would just be there in case they had questions, concerns, uncomforts. I would just make sure I was there for them. So I would just like you to take it into consideration to keep it there as an option. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Carr. Next we have Susan Smith.
Hi, I'm Susan Smith. I grew up in Columbus. I've been gone for like 20 years, and I just got back 9 months ago. But Michelle, my daughter, has been keeping me up to date with books that have been challenged. And I have to tell you, I'm sad. Because when I grew up, and a lot of you are around my age, they didn't ban books. They wanted the kids to learn. And if we take away stuff like this book and others, we learned this stuff. It was good for us. It was good for our children growing up. So why is it not good for my grandchildren and other kids their age? You shouldn't subtract books. You should be encouraging your children and my grandchildren to learn things that we knew and we grew up with. Challenging a book, to me, is wrong. Every book out there teaches you something. Yes, it might scare you a little bit. It might make you on edge, like Michelle said, but you're learning, and that's what your kids need to learn. That's what my grandkids need to learn. And I didn't come back to Columbus to come to a place where they're challenging books. I've been in Missouri, I've been in Nevada, and I've been in Kansas in the last 20 years. In those states, they have not banned books. I come home and find out that you're wanting to challenge books. I believe it's wrong. I'm ashamed of the fact that books are being challenged. And I want to tell you guys that if we learned it and we taught it to our kids, and they were good. Nothing harmed them. They're not damaged. So why should the kids, the new generation, be damaged by stuff that we learned? It's wrong. I beg you, please don't challenge any more books, because you're taking learning away from the kids. And that's wrong. That is so wrong. Please give this a second thought and don't do this. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Smith. Okay. Those are all the comments. Vote. Yes, Mr. Bryant.
We're voting on this due to the fact I wasn't here last meeting.
Very good. You're right. You're accusing yourself. Okay.
Accusing myself.
All right.
I'm a nice guy.
Okay, so motion and a second for approval of item 9, minutes from our August 5th and board meeting and executive session. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say nay. Motion passes 6-0.
Thank you. Also have a request for approval under item 10, new business, for the items A and B, supplemental contracts and school fundraisers, as well as claims and payroll, the claims for just the August 19th claim run of just over $700,000, the pre-runs to this point through July of just over $13 million. That includes the semi-annual debt payments. It's a reason for the large dollar amount there. And then also the August 9 payroll from just under $3 million. The other new business includes the resolutions related to the 2024 lease rental bonds, for which we held the 2 public hearings today, and then 3 of the federal title grants, Title I Part A, Title I Part D, and Title III Part A. Sorry, go ahead.
I move that we approve line items A through G under section 10 as presented.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Schultz and Mr. Nellen. Are there any questions or comments from the board?
Yeah, I had a question about the Title 1A. It showed that there was counseling being contracted and that we had wellness specialists at some but not all schools. Is that something that we would benefit from centralizing and sharing resources? It wasn't clear to me how the resources are used, and like if you had 4 schools and 2 wellness specialists, are they at both, or do they make it to all 4 schools, or are they just for, so just understand a little bit more about how the people are used. And do we need more people?
Is this on? Okay. Our wellness specialists, student wellness specialists are in, and Dr. Hack may be able to make sure I speak correctly. I believe 7 of our current elementary schools. So we're just sharing and braiding funds from education fund covering those and using some Title I funds for our Title I buildings. So we work to make sure that every building has that coverage, not just 2 of the 4. We just are supporting funding through Title I in those buildings.
Okay.
That helps.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
They're
then
still there, they're just paid for in a different way.
different ways, correct. Yep. Any other questions?
No, thank you, Ms. Jeff. Okay, any other questions or comments on these items? No? All right, we have a motion and a second to approve items 10A through G as presented. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed say nay. Motion carries 7-0. Dr. Staubbaum.
Thank you. The 2 human resources recommendations for this evening consist of 1 appointment and 1 leave. I request that you please approve the personnel recommendations as presented in your board packet.
I move that we approve all HR recommendations as presented by Dr. Stahlbaum.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Grimes and Mr. Major. Any questions, comments from the team? Okay.
And there are no additional human resources recommendations for tonight.
Thank you. All those in favor of approving item 11A, human resources recommendations, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed say nay. Motion carries 7-0.
Thank you, Mrs. Wielden. I just want to point out there that I mentioned last meeting that our new teacher orientation had the fewest new teachers we'd had in a long time. I want to say for the first meeting after school's been in for a couple weeks, only having 2, and one of them being a leave, is also a quiet HR report for us. So exciting that our staffing situation is continuing to get better.
Amidst a very difficult staffing market, no less. Okay. All right, I think we have board input and review. Mr. Nallen, would you like to start?
Well, just that congratulations to Mr. Chastain, and it says a lot about him that he spoke about his colleagues too, besides just himself. And the report on reading, the fact that it was great data, but also the passion for reading that the presenters had and the passion they shared that the teachers have is very encouraging.
Similar congratulations to Mr. Chastain and East High School. That's awesome. And then also, again, on the iRead, I know I've been talking with Dr. Hack off to the side on several occasions, and not only the passion, but honestly, just the presentation itself was very, very good in terms of just, again, benchmarking against the state average, already identifying where we're at risk. We have strategies to meet the at risk. I think that's exactly what everyone wanted to see, and I really appreciate the work that Dr. Hack's doing and the whole elementary network. So I think it definitely commendable.
In no particular order, real quickly here. First off, congratulations to Mrs. Wielden, who on Friday will be recognized at the Chamber's Women in Leadership Luncheon. Secondly, again, congratulations to Mr. Chastain and all others that were nominated, and just a big thanks to the dedication and commitment of all teachers across the corporation. And then lastly, something that I think is an excellent addition and potentially very substantial, just a reminder to community members, grandparents, stakeholders in the community to take advantage of the Legacy Pass, which is new to the corporation this year, age 62 plus. Maybe it's special to me because I'm inching closer to that. Please visit the administration building here or any central north side, north or east to attain a complimentary, a sticker that goes on your ID to gain admittance to any school-sponsored event.
Awesome. Very good. I just want to thank Dr. Phillips for holding up his end of the bargain and pushing us down this road of changing policies. I'm not joking. I'm going to get I Heart policy stickers for all of us because it is going to take a long time and it's going to be a lot of heavy lifting, but I just think we're going to be so much better at the end of this. So I appreciate you getting that going and the patience and commitment of this team to see that through. I think that's a big win for us. And then I'd also like to congratulate bus drivers, custodians, food staff, teachers for completing a first full week of school. You know, the first few days you're real excited and then the whole week comes. And I know my kids had a whole nother perspective last Monday and they were really tired this Friday. And I'm sure that was felt across all of the people who were dealing with them all week. So congratulations to getting through that. Now we're off and running. And I also wanted to just reiterate what Dr. Stahlbaum said regarding Molly Fountain, like what an accomplishment for her to make it to the top 10. That is quite a long process. It's a difficult process. I'm not at all surprised she's there because she's fantastic and just wanted to recognize her again.
Yeah, absolutely. Mr. Chastain and Ms. Fountain doing amazing work, representative, I think, of the teachers across the district. I enjoyed the presentations that we had tonight, beginning with the 2030 Envision presentation. Appreciate all the teachers and staff that have been putting work into the building remodels and building construction planning. Presentation, as other board members have said, on the reading initiatives is just amazing. And again, I think there's great work going on in BCSC, and it is much appreciated. Thank you.
Yeah, I want to agree with everybody else on the passion that was shown during the presentation on reading. I think we've all been in presentations with 100-page slides with less substance than what they shared with 5 or 6 slides. So very much appreciate that. The depth and breadth of knowledge and the ability to speak to it with basically no notes means they're truly experts in what they're doing. So thank you for that. I know, again, to what Nikki said, thank you to everybody for their efforts. There's bumps to the beginning of every school year. Thankfully, everybody's been fairly patient. I think we've not seen a whole lot of social media stuff out there that's been too bad. We've had some things here and there, but I think everybody's coming around and we're past all those bumps. Again, to hit Mr. Chastain with accolades, I've said this before, I think I went to 6 or 7 different graduation parties because my daughter graduated and all of her friends invited Mr. Chastain, and it says a lot when I go to a different party and I still see the same teacher showing up. And so when he talks up there, it's because he cares. And I got to directly see that through my daughter. So I appreciate that from him. I hope that Molly Fountain sets the bar high so that we can see if Mr. Chastain can meet that level. So hopefully we'll be talking about him a year from now in the same light in the top 10. So thank you.
I've worked at the public library for 7 years now. And there was a young lady that works down there that has 9 Great Danes. And she brings one Great Dane in and put him in a room, and kids go in and read to that Great Dane. And there was one young lady that cried because she wasn't able to stay another half an hour to read to that dog. And I just sort of started laughing myself because I thought it was funny. And then Cindy Day, which is a young lady that works at the library, she comes up to me, she said, you know, that young lady couldn't read until she started coming in here and sitting and reading to that dog. Dr. Hack, I'm not telling you get a Great Dane and have your meeting, but it is a situation that reading is so important, not only to the kids and not only to us, but to everybody, including Great Danes. I agree with the rest of my board members about what has happened here tonight, and I'm pleased. That's probably the most I ever spoke, isn't it?
It is. Okay, and on that high note, let's see, we will be together again on September 9th at 6:30 in the admin building for regular school board meeting, and then again on the 23rd of September, 6:30 right here, okay?
And that meeting on the 9th is an important one. So we have the budget workshop, as I mentioned before, and then second readings on those policies. And Pat, if you could just get 2 more Great Danes, we'd have one for every elementary. I can't believe one person has 9 Great Danes. I just want to add something after some of the comments that you all made about the start of the school and heroes that helped get everything going. You all don't know that in the 24 hours prior to the start of the school, we had network lines cut to 3 of our buildings, including the transportation center. So with 24 hours left before buses were set to go pick up thousands of kids and run 8,000 miles, the technology department, Mr. Williams back there, relocated the entire routing system to this space, hooked up everybody from the transportation department here, and they ran everything for routing on the first day of school from right here, with Dr. Bozeman standing right over there while all of this construction things were going on under his supervision as well. So that operations department deserves more kudos than what people will ever know. So thank you. And then the last thing is that between now and the next meeting is Rivalry Week. And yes, I do have to say it like that. Rivalry Week. So best week in Indiana in sports. And if you have not seen our kids compete against one another and then hang out after the game on the field together in blood, sweat, and tears, oftentimes in all 3, hugging one another and enjoying themselves as friends and competitors, you haven't seen anything better than that. So make it to some event, cross country, tennis, volleyball, football, soccer, all happen in the next 14 days or so.
Okay, with that, meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everybody.